Target is on the move.
Is the target Gerard Butler? Who just said target is on the move? Everything was so dark and close up that I have no idea who's doing what. I wouldn't be surprised if this turned out to be a training exercise. This guy gets a message. Somebody I think is Gerard Butler is sneaking around. Somebody with a gun here. Trigger finger. I think that's Gerard Butler, but I'm not sure. Gun shooting in the darkness. Another guy fires back. Some dude appears to get hit with a bullet. I have no idea what's going on, but I'm sure everyone who made this movie thought it was exciting. Also, why does this movie look so much like Saw? It's got a tone of sepia mixed with tobacco remnants. I guess we could just call this the Lionsgate sheen. Coherence is a thing, guys. How does this bad guy compound have one isolated dude wandering around that Mike can easily beat and move on to the next thing? Doesn't anyone remember the buddy system? What happened to the buddy system? Stairs, excitement. And to nobody's surprise at all, this thing was a goddamn training exercise. It's a cliche as old as time. Cave drawings depicted men running through the woods and getting attacked by a bear, only for the next drawing to show the bear hugging that man and telling him what he did wrong so he'll learn a lesson. I now add 25 sins for wasting our time. There's no way only one of the people in the exercise would have a paint gun, right? If that's true, then why did no one Mike shoot over the last 3 minutes have any paint on their gear?
Hey, Mike, this course, nobody makes it that far.
Fun back and forth banter. Clearly old friends, probably war buddies. Roll cast with Danny Houston. Yep, he's the bad guy.
I bought it for next to nothing from Uncle Sam. Turned Sailing Global into a 5,000-acre Disneyland.
Cool, I hope you improve that Indiana Jones ride, because the original one is kind of
Hey, asshole.
I sure am glad this guy decided to make a big stink about something Mike did in the training session, even though I'm sure he's used to being roughed up in these things. It'll make him that much easier to identify when Mike finds out his buddy is behind all this. Also, with an obvious henchman assholing harder than he needs to, if you just replace Houston and Kid here with Guy Pearce and Sam Hugan, would you realize you aren't watching Bloodshot?
Well, if I could get a contract for your special ops to train here, finally get me out of the red.
Banking on the government to get you out of the red.
Hey, when are you in D.C. next?
After Wonder Woman? Probably not for a super long time, unless they want to resurrect my character like they did Chris Pine's. Whenever I see that Piper Perabo has replaced Rhoda Mitchell in something, I like to call that situation a rowdy Rhoda Piper.
And you said it was from a car accident?
I understand the need for Mike to hide the fact that he's a Secret Service guy when he's talking about his injuries, but why can't he just say he's in the Army or something?
Well, that's all for today, folks. Thank you very much.
Mr. President! Mr. President! Is the asteroid still headed for Earth? Mr. President!
Half these guys aren't even American. It's not the same fighting for money as when you fight for your flag.
Doesn't approve of non-Americans working for the government, casting Tim Blake Nelson in the role. Yep, he's the asshole on the inside partnered up with Danny Houston. This movie isn't even trying to deceive us. To be fair, unless you cast Glenn Close or Morgan Freeman in the role, the vice president is always the villain. Breaking news, Russian troop movement. I haven't seen a more obvious protagonist is going to go off and get framed for the murder of the president of the United States and not be able to finish this important conversation with his wife cliche since Urban Cowboy. Mike tells the president he must really love fishing because it's so very cold. He also likes disrupting the lives of several people and wasting taxpayers' dollars on the extra security every time he does it. Also, fishing. It's really getting harder and harder to think of a 2019 movie that didn't have drones in it. Also, I realize there's some inside involvement, but there are plenty of people surveying the area that aren't trying to kill the president. So not one of these goddamn people saw a suspicious vehicle that could mount a drone strike. There are even multiple aircraft flying all over the goddamn place. Random SWAT guy has fallen. Totally get that they're setting up Banning to take the fall, so I get why they're not attacking him, but I don't understand why they don't just go ahead and kill the president instead of wasting their time on these randos. I see that this movie ported its fire effects directly from the Hunger Games. This is just a bunch of whatever. I don't know how action directors get into an editing bay with their editor and decide, I want a fraction of a second of this and a fraction of a second of that, and all this stuff I worked so hard on to film for weeks will be condensed into 5 seconds. I'm trying very hard to pretend that this helicopter is real, but that opens up the possibility that the gnomes biting my ankles are real. The last time I thought that, I nearly went bankrupt buying the special socks that cover up gnome bite wounds. Foot fetishes.
I, Martin James Kirby, do solemnly swear.
As Kirby gets sworn in as the acting president, this movie cuts to dead bodies. Who the edited this? The people behind the Sarah McLachlan Dogs in Cages commercials?
Maybe you can explain why I found your DNA in the van.
This whole plot suggests that Mike drove a van full of drones to some remote lake and then, I guess, Ubered back to be with the president before he went on his fishing trip. I feel like this is something that would be relatively easy to check, to see if they can find evidence of such a van driving down the street at any point from Washington, D.C. to bump McGee Lake. I feel like there's more to an investigation than this, like common sense.
How about that he has seen 4 different doctors in the last 6 months, paying each one of them in cash? Did you know about that issue?
How did they already know about that issue? Based on the visit with the doctor we saw earlier, Mike was giving out false information. I'm sure they would have found out about it eventually, but not this quickly.
You had this perfectly planned, Mike, didn't you?
Seriously, even if Agent Thompson 100% believes Mike is behind this, the fact that she can say this was perfectly planned without laughing is sinful enough.
Now, if that's the case, Leah, that means somebody paid him to do this. If you can help me find that person, It would help Mike's case considerably.
Agent Thompson is laying out all the evidence she has for both Banning and his wife without arresting either one of them or even reading them their rights. She might be the worst cop in movie history. Doug Fackler now looks like an amazing police officer in comparison.
What the is wrong with you?
You tell him, Mike. Everyone here knows you're a law-abiding citizen. So you think Mike Banning tried to kill the president using drones and has a wealthy backer. But you didn't think bringing more protection was necessary when taking him to prison? You put a guy in a van with 2 U.S. Marshals with only 2 cars tailing them like he's Dr. Richard Kimball, even though Mike and his buddy took out 452 Secret Service agents just yesterday. The past 30 seconds of this movie has basically been a semi-dark screen with barely perceptible fighting movement. I hope Mike is winning. Wow, Mike must have night vision to be able to identify this guy in the dark and remember he was the one who yelled at him at the training session earlier.
Banning is Secret Service. He knows how we do this. He knows all our tricks.
Agent Thompson is giving Mike a lot of credit for knowing how things work, for someone who just accused him of basically not knowing how things work.
And I don't want to hear anything about a subpoena at this point because I really don't give a We will deal with that later.
Agent Thompson must be under the impression that it would be super difficult to get a subpoena in the search for the man who was wanted for almost killing the president. Instead of just getting them, which would be easy under these circumstances, she decides, F it, we'll leave it up to chance.
We agreed to keep Banning alive to Lake so that he could take the fall.
This voice is disguised because the movie doesn't want you to know it's Tim Blake Nelson yet. But why is it disguised in general? Both parties know who each other are. Are they afraid that someone might be listening? Makes sense, but these two guys will give massive amounts of clues to their identities during the conversations we see in this movie.
Then you said you were going to make it look like his team rescued him and disappeared with the 10 million.
The other guy on the end of the line, who is definitely Tim Blake Nelson, says the other part of the plan at the lake was to make it look like Mike's team rescued him and then disappeared with $10 million. The only problem with that plan is, wouldn't it have required Mike and his team to disappear after the attack?
High Mountain Militia, don't move.
I get his face has been all over the news and is attached to an attempted assassination on the president. So yeah, maybe these rednecks with guns would recognize him. But once again, it's dark. Why would they even be looking for him? As far as they know, he's still in police custody. There's no way that escape already made the news. I see that Angel Has Fallen is also going to take from the Taken 3 Bible by having its wrongfully accused protagonist get away with a ton of actual crimes just because he's innocent of the other. Mike survives this, and even so, isn't even hurt. That's because Mike's adrenaline also has a big movie narrates for us what happened because it too realizes we can't see in these nighttime scenes.
What time did the police call in the semi-crash?
Scanner traffic peaks at 4:17 a.m.
Clearly, Angel Has Fallen found that Timothy Olyphant talks around the computer scenes from Live Free or Die Hard a little too exciting, so made theirs less so. Other acceptable old crusty dad choices in addition to Nick Nolte would have been Joe Don Baker, Gary Busey, or Wilford Brimley.
How the did you find me?
Nick Nolte is playing the reclusive asshole father of our main character. Maybe my theory is correct, that they just took the unused sequel script to Ang Lee's Hulk, changed Banner to Banning, and hoped no one would notice.
You'd like it if I did, wouldn't you? Dad.
Oh, for sake. Next thing you know, we'll be going to Samoa to find The Rock's brother and Jason Statham's brother and sister. You know, assholes that didn't exist until a movie series needed them.
Why did I think coming here was a good idea? I knew you had time to kill, but Jesus.
Mike is chalking up his father's ability to dig a tunnel long enough, wide enough, and big enough to escape through to the fact that he had time to kill. This movie. Mike's dad apparently set up a backyard full of explosives just in case any bad guys showed up, which is fine. But why didn't he build a bunker or a deer blind or something where he could blow people up and not be exposed? Sure, I'd get my rocks off too, standing in the middle of a clearing and blowing guys up, but I'd want to do it where I could see and hide from the enemy.
Okay, you stay here.
Really? Just gonna run off without asking your father if there's any more explosive devices you could trigger?
Are you kidding me?
What exactly is Mike so pissed off with his father about here? Looks like Clay is doing a much better job of disposing of the enemy than Mike is.
Pull up that wire. What wire? In the f***ing leaves, where else?
Clay tells Mike to pull on a wire, and he's like, what wire? And then he's like, in the leaves, and there are goddamn leaves everywhere. Yet Mike finds the wire in the dark anyway. I'm also wondering why Mike's dad can't just do it himself, since he's probably been waiting for this day for over 40 years.
Just stop with all your big brother
Big brother shaming.
Do you think it's about the money, Mike?
I do, because you literally asked Mike at the beginning of the movie to get the president to outsource some contracts your way because your company was not doing well financially.
She got an engine. She lights the tires.
Do you think Nick Nolte has ever just given a simple yes or no answer to a question? Because I seriously don't think he has. I'm sure Morgan Freeman doesn't mind, but watching one of our very best actors play a role where he's in a coma for most of it is not my idea of fun. It's like watching Jodie Foster in Elysium all over again. Also, this entire scene is about how President Trumbull might wake up later. Definitely not now, but sometime in the future. So, put that in your memory caps. This scene will be important later when he does wake up, and you'll feel smart because you paid attention. Look, I know Mike didn't want to put on a disguise because it would make him look guilty, but I really don't understand the point of him standing around in the open, hanging out, especially since he was accosted by a militia earlier. And yeah, that militia was terrible, but why go through the grief of being recognized?
But don't you underestimate me for a second.
What? You mean Tim Blake Nelson, the vice president, was a surprise bad guy all along? Who could have seen that coming? Why the need for a surprise that's this unsurprising? You could have avoided tons of bull. Certain scenes would have had more suspense, and their plan would have made a lot more sense if we just saw Wade and Kirby plotting at the beginning of the movie. Also, the vice president being behind an attempted assassination of the president is so cliche, 24 only used the storyline 3 times.
We snuck around the back to avoid the press and police.
These guys snuck in through the backyard. Nobody expects people to come through the backyard. Are you seriously telling me there isn't a camera guy in a tree somewhere who didn't just see these 2 dudes walk in? Not one cop? The backyard? Out of here with your backyard. Nolte ex machina.
Michael Jameson. Manny.
Clay gives Coyote Ugly a rundown of Mike's full name, where he was born, and his mom's maiden name, and that's enough for her to trust the non-Robert Redford Jeremiah Johnson.
Do you remember where Mike Banning was at the time, sir?
Was Mike killed?
Yeah, no need to answer that with Mike was by me saving my life, or 1,000 other things that would have Gentry on the phone shouting Mike's innocence. The movie has dragged everything else out. Might as well drag this out as well.
Mr. Jennings, I'm Helen Thompson.
I'm wondering, if you're investigating a war contractor company that might have killed 18 Secret Service agents and almost the president, would you show up with just one partner and a helicopter pilot? This seems kind of dumb. Agent Thompson had the least satisfying story arc for a character since Jack Black, and I still know what you did last summer. Note to movie law enforcement, if a company buys more than one of these Chevy Suburbans, they are likely bad guys. Mike's entire plan here is to take a Secret Service guy hostage, run into the hospital, and hope Trumbull has the mental faculties to remember that he saved him on the lake. All so that he can tell everybody that it's not safe here. I think a simple phone call might have done the same trick, but that wouldn't have been unnecessarily exciting.
The stupid thing has crashed 6 times in the last hour.
This nurse makes a remark about the computers crashing on the 6th time it happens. And thank God she does, because Mike is within earshot to get suspicious about it. I'm guessing the 2nd time it happened would have been plenty annoying enough, and the 3rd time would have been grounds to call the IT department, but no, the 6th time is when computer crashes start to get annoying. Also, I'm wondering why the bad guys even bothered to wait this long to do all this. One of the biggest threats to their entire plan is Turnbull waking up and telling everybody Mike didn't do the drone attack. They could have done this way earlier when Mike was on the lam. In fact, with hacking skills this amazing, they probably could have come up with a better plan than the drone attack to kill the president.
No, we can't wait for Marine 1.
My question is, why isn't Marine 1, or at least Marine 2, already parked on the top of the hospital, or at least a nearby building?
Sir, if Trumbull is awake, we're going to need his authorization before proceeding with any kind of strike.
You should have needed some authorizations prior to Trumbull waking up. Kirby has been acting president for, what, a day and a half at this point? And he's initiating and getting approval of a full-out war against Russia? This is easily the movie's biggest flaw. And this is a movie that would have us believe Piper Perabo and Gerard Butler have chemistry.
The transfer of power back to a president has never happened in our nation's history.
1985 Ronald Reagan and George Bush would disagree.
There! Backstreet!
I know that you want the president to be in a secure vehicle, but why put him in the most obvious presidential car during a terrorist attack? Why isn't he in a Nissan Sentra? The windows on this thing aren't bulletproof, so why did they need the fancy car? Either take the car Mike stole to get to the hospital, or steal another car. Mike was innocent of trying to kill the president, remember? He could steal whatever car he wants. God damn it. F***ing Joker. Also, this has to be like the 18th movie Morgan Freeman has been in where the hospital blows up. Seems like a good time to point out this movie had a budget of $40 million, and this was the best shot they could get in this scene.
They got Will!
God damn it. I don't know why that's so funny, but it's really funny. As we watch Mike one-manning it once again, I'm wondering who the Secret Service has who can replace him. There's not one other guy around who's willing to do this die-hard. And they clearly need someone to do that when Mike is gone. And it actually would make this movie a little bit better if there was actually another guy trying to be like Mike. Man, this final sequence is kind of fun. And it shows some of the no-holds-barred approach to action that made Olympus's Fall and work so well. It's also the only scene in the movie that's lit worth a damn. Too bad the rest of the movie is a f***ing slog to get through. Team runs into a room that you think is where their targets are, but their targets are actually someplace else cliché. The shot isn't nearly as cool as you think it is. Where's the goddamn aircraft from the beginning of the movie? It could be effectively used to fight the bad guys in their helicopter. But I guess we've got to see Mike run by a big glass window trying to hit their gunner. Even 1987 Schwarzenegger would have said, that's dumb. This works? Mike Banning survives this? You decide. I just can't with this. So wait, is Mike dropping this gun because it's out of ammo? Or is it because he wants this final fight to be more sporting? Man, someone should take this guy to a hospital. Wait. I'm not sure if this moment is supposed to be sad, uplifting, or thirsty, but I have a crying boner. This lion's bullshit is far and away the worst use of animal metaphors since the whole bear thing from the first few Friday the 13th movies. Now all the planes show up. They cut this picture from a 2017 G20 summit off at the left so you can't see Donald Trump, and they replaced some other guy with Morgan Freeman. And mainly I'm wondering, why couldn't we have just replaced Trump with Freeman? It would have been symbolic, image-wise and name-wise. While alone together in this room, Trumbull accuses Kirby of being a crook. And I know Kirby isn't likely to kill the president here, but why take the chance? And sure, the Wire's Cedric Daniels is just outside, but Kirby might have switchblades in his shoes. He didn't think about that, did you?
Why did you think you couldn't come to me with this, after all we've been through?
Trumbull wonders why Mike couldn't tell him about all the medical he was going through, and he's totally right. It's the kind of thing you only keep secret if a movie villain wants to use it against you later, honestly. After the movie is done, the movie isn't done.
Our goal here is to increase your powers of control.
What the is this movie? End of movie, skip!
Keep the change, you filthy animal.
Did you know the CinemaSin writers have podcasts? Check out Sincast and Behind the Sins by searching for CinemaSins wherever you listen to podcasts.
Who the hell are you?
Bad guy.
Okay. I'm with you fellas.
Well, you don't enjoy it? I like being out in the woods.
No, I enjoy it, but I'm missing dance class for this.
What the?
We lost power. Brakes, steering, everything. We lost 9 minutes.
Now I have a machine gun. Ho, ho, ho.
Thompson.
Hello. Do you want to play a game?
What you doing there?
You see, that's Big Brother for you. I have spoken. You are not going to fail me. You think I was just blowing my own bagpipe in that meeting? You must put those boys in the
War. It's fantastic.